Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today with another episode, and with Joshua Mecengill. Joshua is quite. Hello, Joshua. Let me welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? So good to be here, Claudia. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
it's always a pleasure to have someone who talks about things that you're going to talk about, and he doesn't know what he's going to talk about, but he doesn't know my questions yet. So he's there sweating bullets, I imagine. In truth, what happens is I always ask my guests what they would like to talk about, and I don't give them what they want to talk about, but I give them something like that. But what's interesting about Joshua is that he comes from he has these two very heavy hats. One hat is the management, consulting, uh, you know, sort of, I want to say corporate America, corporate world of work. But
Sure.
then he has this background of ministry school program,
Mhm.
which is, all about spirituality. And I don't want to go into that because I think he's much more, um, he's right, he's the right person to do that. But what's interesting about this is that he describes himself as an introvert. And I don't know if any of you have ever interviewed people, but getting uh, information out of an introvert is often like pulling teeth. I hope that's not going to be the case, Joshua. Please don't let me
No,
do that.
no.
All right. So let me start by asking you what brought you to start the ministry school?
So I worked with the ministry school. These are kind of less academic than
Mm-hmm.
people are used to. They're more experiential,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was something I did in Atlanta, and just got involved because I wanted to have more experiences. I wanted to be around like-minded people that
Well, when you say
wouldn't.
more experience, what kind of like-minded information or about what? What was in their minds?
Yeah, well, it seems like there's different camps of Christianity, like anything else, and
Okay.
so with this Christian camp, it's all about actually going into the streets and maybe like praying for healing, and then not just praying for healing and walking off, but asking like, "Hey, did anything happen? Did you have a change?" And miraculously, it really does invite these
Okay, wait a minute,
amazing
wait a minute.
moments.
Wait. We're
Mhm.
throwing out already Christianity without introducing it. So, if
Oh,
you
no problem.
could define yourself uh, in that sense, how would you define your message or your activity?
Well, I mean, it requires a little story. I think,
Good.
so many preconceptions exist on Christians, and unfortunately, there's so many of them are negative. And I wholeheartedly can, see that myself.
Hmm.
Used to be an atheist and mostly agnostic, but occasionally just really angry at, in my perception
How long
this
ago,
time.
Joshua, was
So this
that?
is I was 27 years old, and I am 41 now. So this is quite
Recent.
a little while. Yeah.
Well, it's fairly
Well,
recent.
yeah.
When you were agnostic, can we say that?
Hmm.
When you were a
Yeah.
non-believer?
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. All those terms are accurate. I think the difference was that what happened to me was where I actually, and I use this word a lot. I throw it around. It's encountered. I encountered God.
Hmm.
I had an open vision, which is a little bit like a dream,
Right.
and except for you're fully awake.
Okay,
I
so
was
let's
actually
go
jogging
slow.
at the
Go
time.
slow. Go slow when you
Oh,
when you
sure.
describe this because it's important. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
Hmm.
So like a lot of Christian experiences, I was very, professional, like living in some form of success. I was succeeding. I was working at the managerial company that was like a dream job, and working around the clock, lots of hours, and
Hmm.
exhausted, and also just doing some drugs and those kind of things, and lots of alcohol. Like that was my big go to that I was kind of getting out of had been out of control in my life for a while.
Hmm.
So I was a little upside down, and those things hurt, and and that came from a lot of
Mm.
past experiences. My dad committed suicide
Mm.
when I was
Terrible.
15. My brother later committed suicide
Oh,
when I was 21.
my
And those
God.
things left me with a reasonably just a messed up kind of
Of course.
internal atmosphere. And so there was a lot of anger there, and that's why I would say I would use that word. It was, a lot of my any kind of faith
Yeah.
or religious ideas were really drawn from that anger, and
Right.
like I was abandoned, I was left alone,
Yeah.
and if there was a God, then He didn't care about me, kind of stuff like that. And yeah, go ahead.
Just a moment. Just a second.
Awesome.
Just a second. Sorry I interrupted you, Joshua. I had to plug in my computer so we wouldn't
No
die.
problem.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yes. And I kind of had one of those moments that a lot of Christians, I think, have, where I was like the end of my rope,
Mm.
I was suicidal. I
Oh,
struggled from suicidal thoughts,
wow.
and lots of anxiety,
So
and
you're not yet
just
30, right? That?
no, I was
Uh-huh.
27 years old
Okay.
at the time, and so lots of noise up here. I
In
just
your
could
head,
not
yeah.
get it. Yeah, and I just couldn't get it to quiet, and it was painful. Like I was hiding a lot in my life. I didn't
Hmm.
want to let people in. They would think I was there was something wrong with me, and that was, it was a painful experience. And this was the height of it.
Hmm.
And so what happened was I went to try to kill myself. I actually drank a fifth of Jack Daniels, took a bunch of pills,
Wow.
and then passed out. Don't remember what happened. And about 4 hours later, I wake up, and rather than feeling like a crushing hangover or being dead,
Hmm.
I felt like a brand new person, and I felt really peaceful. Where all that anxiety had taken up space in my mind, it was like completely replaced with
Well, what
peace. And
happened?
I don't, I mean, I had to learn it later. Like it wasn't obvious, but I was just like, something has clearly happened to me. And I felt so good. And just out of confusion, not having a Christian box for this, not
Hmm.
understanding any of the lingo, not speaking Christianese or anything like that. I'm
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
joking,
yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, like I just woke up, felt so good that I went for a jog. When I went for the jog, I started having an open vision. I was living in San Diego at the time,
Yeah,
and there's a beautiful park there, Balboa Park, which
yeah.
don't live your whole life without seeing it. It's
Uh,
amazing. And so I was there, and it's just one of the most beautiful mornings I've ever seen. There's like just this ethereal fog everywhere, kind of going on, and light coming through the cloud, and some of this fog, and it just looks so beautiful. And then I started seeing like what the Bible talks about as demons, like all over the
yeah.
place. And
Hmm.
I'm like, well, and I'm thinking, I'm an academic. I'm kind of thinking, well, I might have schizophrenia or
Yeah,
something. Like there might be
right,
something really wrong with me,
right.
and that made sense to me. But I realized, a little bit into the open vision, that it wasn't going away, and that I could also turn it on and off. Like I could
Ah,
look at it, I could focus on it, or I could focus right past it,
and you
kind
were
of like a
running? You were
car.
still running?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still jogging, and I'm like definitely afraid, like feeling fear, and like what is going on with me right now, and and all these other thoughts kind of come in about maybe this is like an onset of like schizophrenia, or something's wrong with me. That would make the most sense compared to where I've been
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Alcohol, the pills, everything, all that would have made sense. But at the same time, I was sensing and feeling this peace that everything was going to be okay. So I just
yeah,
kept going, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep running. Maybe I'll feel better later, and this will all, and whatever's happening will go away. It didn't go away. It just kept coming, and I realized, like, it's like looking at a windshield. If I could describe it, like you
yeah,
can look at the road,
yeah.
or you can look at the windshield, and I could easily just flip it on and off like a switch. And
While
so I
you were
decided,
running, so
right.
this is in the course of, say a half hour? How long did you run that day?
It was about it's probably about an hour, and that
Okay.
was not unusual for
Yeah.
me. It's a big
Yeah.
park, so, and I jogged through it, and as I'm jogging, these demon figures were just lining the horizon, like
Yeah.
it seemed like they were looking at me, and so I decided, all right, I'm gonna just leave this on, kind of in a
Yeah.
way, but I'm just gonna keep jogging. I keep jogging. I hear someone running up beside me, and I didn't think about it. I just figured it was a real person,
Right.
whatever, no big deal. And lots of people jog there. So, but it ended up being someone that I had read about but didn't know very much about. It was Peter from the Bible, which I'm sure sounds very strange to
Yeah.
people. But he's a
With
character in
running
the Bible he
shoes
wrote.
or no? No, this is just not running. This was actually Peter alongside you. Okay.
Right. Yes. And so I'm jogging. He's in jogging clothes with
Ah,
a,
he's in jogging clothes.
and the other thing, he didn't announce himself. Like I
Mhm.
knew who he was, just like that. So this is an open vision. I don't know how these things work, but this is something that's going on.
Yeah.
He begins to speak to me. He begins to calm me down. There's a dialogue that took place there. Some of it I forgot because, like I said, I don't have the Christian
Right.
box to like
Right.
that. I'm like trying to manage this stuff and
Right.
write it all down and everything. So eventually he runs off, and another character runs up, which is sorry. The first character was Paul. This is so weird that I
Okay.
just messed
Okay.
that up.
Paul.
Paul from the Bible. He actually wrote some of the Bible, the New Testament.
Yeah.
And then there's Peter,
Yeah.
who comes in next. He's running. He's jogging beside me, and he ends up being really funny. And so he's like laughing with me and stuff, and cracking dad jokes and just like normal everyday stuff.
Yeah.
But I knew who he was, and I'm just like, and I hadn't laughed in a long time. I took myself very seriously. I wore suits every day. You see me now, I'm in
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
t-shirt,
Yeah.
but so I just wasn't,
Now
I
wait a
wasn't
minute.
allowing
Wait a minute,
myself.
Joshua. This
Yeah,
is the day that you had attempted suicide, the fifth
that's
of
right.
Daniels, and the pills. Woke up refreshed after 4 hours and went for a run. That's the
That's
same
right.
day, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm still in that day, and I'm having this experience, and so he made me laugh, and that was the big deal. That was such a big deal. My face just hadn't cracked in a long time, which is so sad. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It is sad.
but
Yeah.
and
But it's
but
very
I
normal
just
as well. I mean,
I know,
a lot of
and
people don't laugh. Hmm.
and I feel for them. I mean,
Yeah.
life should at least have some joy in it. I mean,
At
we
least
have,
half of your
yeah,
life.
oh man,
Make it balanced. Yeah.
right. So yeah, and the hardness of life had really caught up with me. So,
Hmm.
and I know that's a little different than some people, but like, yeah, a lot of people can relate to that as well. So,
Hmm.
and that was it. So that happened. And then I kept running, kept jogging. Still, I don't know what the
What
demons
did they
are. They're still
do?
there.
They just left, said goodbye, and left one at a time? I mean, how did they,
So
you know,
they shared things with me that helped my
and
heart.
then they just left?
And well, Paul left. Peter wants to teach me how to kill these demons,
Okay,
which is
good,
so
good.
interesting.
Okay. And
So
what did he suggest?
So he said, and I remember the words because they were so unique. He just said, it's like a video game, which
Yeah.
I wasn't a big video game
Yeah.
player or anything, but he said, just use your imagination and kill
Yes.
them.
Yes. Yes.
And so I started with like a sword, and I'm like hitting
Right,
them
right, 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 right,
and
right,
those kind
right.
of things, and
Yeah, yeah.
they shatter and stuff, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh wow, like they look so menacing. And by
Yeah.
the way, they had closed in
Yeah,
right at
yeah,
the
yeah.
appropriate time.
I will stop you here and I'll
Yeah.
share something that has
Oh,
happened
please do.
recently to me. That was way back when, right? Well, how many years?
Yeah.
13 years ago, about?
A little, yeah.
Okay,
I'm
maybe
terrible at
13,
math sometimes.
14. No, but if you were 27, you're 40, did you say?
41.
41. So it's 13, 14 years ago.
That's
Since
it.
COVID, I work with energy. I work with demons. I work with the dark world, right?
Right.
Since COVID, we have had an onslaught of alien attacks and throwing all
Wow.
kinds of demons are still there, but I'm part of a group of like you say, like-minded individuals who
That's right.
work with energy. And when you say he taught you how to kill the demons just like a video game, that's exactly
Wow.
We did. I swear to you, there were 8 of
Oh,
us,
wow.
and 4 of
Mhm.
the people with us had the job, and this is all dictated from people like Peter and Paul. They tell you what to do.
Wow.
4 of
Yes.
us had to concentrate our energy and our spirit in. I won't go into it now because there were certain things we had to do, but the other
Mhm.
4 literally started aiming at, you know, like a video game. And
Wow.
since that day, and I have the proof on my body because I have been attacked, and I'm a woman, I'm a person who never lives with pain. I do not know pain, knock on wood, knock on anything.
Wow, wow,
I'm not
wow.
a spring chicken. I don't have any pain, nothing,
That's
right?
amazing. Amazing.
When I get attacked,
Mhm.
I start with the feet, the toes, the fingers, the knees, what's going on. My neck, when I wake up, all of a sudden, I know it's an attack. I start. And that had been building up and building up and building up. Then, and we as a group of energy workers work with each other to clear each other, but it was getting so heavy that we decided well, we were asked to do this type of, I could call it, jokingly, a powwow. But it worked. And
Yeah.
since that day, and I'm talking about maybe almost 3 weeks, I had nothing. All of those little things have gone, except, of course, if you have pain for more than a month, 2 months, 3 months in a certain part of your body, you have
Mhm.
some form of inflammation if it stays there. So you have to deal with that inflammation. But I tell you, it was
Mhm.
it's hard to tell people about it. Not many people understand, and not many people believe you. But I
Right.
swear, when you started saying that it was full of
That's
demons, I was
amazing.
seeing demons. I know
Yeah.
what they look like, and
Yeah.
more than look, because I'm a clairaudient, so I know what they sound like. My vision
Mhm.
is so bad. So that the sound is what I work with. And
Wow.
so what I'm interested in knowing is that when you had first Paul and then Peter, and then he told you how to,
Mhm.
like a video game, get rid of the demons, did that actually work for you with your sword and all of that?
Well, I was hopeful, and I felt like it was working because I kept just hammering them out, and like I tried a sword, I tried guns,
Yeah, in your mind,
and
in your
right, yeah,
intention.
it's all in
Yeah,
my mind.
yeah.
But I am actually still running, by the
Good,
way, and
good,
I'm jogging,
good for
and
you.
I'm starting to make these motions with
Right,
my
good.
hands and stuff
Yes,
like that.
that's right. Yeah, you have to stay away.
Yeah.
There are certain things you do have to even mouth it. You have to say, just
Mhm.
you have to
Yeah.
find
I
a
mean,
formula.
definitely, and I'm just kind of engaged. I'm so engaged at this point that
But do
it's
you
just my
now,
reality.
can
Mhm.
you now see and know when there are negative entities around you?
Frequently, I
Yeah.
can. I don't know why it comes and goes, but it does. Sometimes I can even see in the spirit. I can, and it's just an interesting gift that I don't kind of understand. I
Yeah.
mean, as far as being a Christian, I do understand that there's a lot of mysteries, that we
Yeah.
just, and it's healthy, I think, to kind of give up like some of that and say, well, it's fine. I don't have to be in control of everything,
When you said,
like.
when you write that you're not a practicing Christian, that made me laugh. Because what do you exactly mean by that?
Well, I'm definitely a practicing Christian. I think that like traditional Christianity, where it's more about showing up and and being part of a certain group and acting a certain way, to me that can be just as dangerous as any other form of mask that people
Yeah.
are hiding that people do in any other place. So
Yeah.
I definitely don't condone that, and
Hmm.
I do feel like there's a real relationship with God that's available. So that's kind of my take on it. I am
Hmm.
definitely a Christian, in my own perception, and wouldn't want to let anybody lead anybody a different way
Right.
when it came to mine. But I've just had these experiences that brought me into faith. So I'm not working with someone else's faith
Right.
or someone else's, like my pastor's like
Hmm.
idea of what it should be. Like they're helpful and I'll learn from them. I'm
Yeah.
not offended by what they're saying. But I also have had my own experiences, which I think is actually really helpful. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
just always trying to live off of someone else's ideas of what the
Ideas.
spirit is like and things
Hmm.
like that, then it's just hard for us to maintain the kind of stability that we need when it comes to the world. Like you're saying, we live in a real world that has a spiritual, unseen realm,
Of course. And it's very
and
powerful. Yeah.
and it's powerful and it's affecting our lives. I mean, it has everything to do with COVID, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel, I mean, I actually went through COVID myself, and I mean, it
Mm.
was such a spiritual battle,
Oh,
and
wow.
there was so much noise in my head. That's
Oh
kind
my
of one of
God.
the ways that it comes to me.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I got suicidal, which I haven't been in a
Again.
long time. So yeah.
Again
And I
during
was just
COVID.
like,
Hmm. Yeah.
during COVID,
Let me ask you because, and I don't want to interrupt you, but
no problem.
when you did mention demons and you saw them very clearly and then hashing and trying to get rid of them, but there was
Right.
also, um, I mean, I'm talking from the position of someone who believes and understands that black
Hmm.
and white exist for a reason, and it brings balance. And so where there are
Hmm.
demons or devils or however you want to call them, negative entities, there are light beings and they coexist, and you need to embrace
Yeah.
both of those sides. In this
Mm.
case, having said that, there is the other side of the spectrum, Joshua, where
Mm.
not only the demons, but Peter, Paul came to you, right? Have you
Right.
had since then visitations or messages, direct, because you talk about how to hear from God?
Right.
And what
Well,
is that about?
so from a Christian perspective,
Hmm.
we, as new covenant believers, we should all
Now,
be
wait,
able to
wait,
hear
wait.
from God.
When you say new
Hmm.
covenant, because there's so many different members
Oh
of the
yeah,
audience that
absolutely.
are from everywhere. When you mean
Awesome.
already Christian in itself is a difficult concept,
Hmm.
but new
I'm so
covenant,
sorry.
what does that mean exactly?
So the old covenant is the Bible. The Bible was written. It's a very legalistic perspective.
Hmm.
And Christians use it a lot as well. But it is very much like the conviction, the finding in yourself of wrongdoing, of
Yes,
sin, of faults.
right.
And so that's the old covenant. That's what it was there for.
Yes.
They call it legalism. They call it
Hmm.
religion, all those kind of things. The new covenant is actually the conviction or the finding of righteousness. Like it's
Mm.
supposed to, like where you actually look inside yourself and you see good and those kind of things. And you're supposed to actually, like understand that by
Mm.
uncovering that stuff, then you become more and more like the Son, Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
So that's the new covenant, is this revealing of your truth, like yourself. You're a new creation too. So
Right.
it's some of it can sound very confusing, but it comes down to this idea that basically we're being saved and
Hmm.
brought
Yeah.
out of darkness.
I have
Um,
a little bit of issue with the word righteousness,
mhm.
because it's in
Most
linguistic
people do.
terms, righteousness is a precursor of fanaticism. And
Hmm.
is there a fine line there? I mean, what do you exactly mean when you say righteousness?
Well, it's such a great question. I mean, like,
Hmm.
really, and a lot of Christians get this confused as well. So it's not just like, us against them kind of
Hmm.
situations. And it's not just defining a word. I
Yeah.
mean, so the new covenant, at least from my perspective and what I've experienced, remember this is an experiential
Right. Right. Right.
idea. So is that it was a gift from God. So
Uh huh.
it's His righteousness. So
Uh huh.
we need God in our lives because He's providing this to us.
Hmm.
He's giving it to us. And that's part of the idea that we're new creations. So we're not alone. We're not detached from Him. We're actually sons and daughters.
Mm.
He is
Not
a
many
heavenly
people
Father.
not many people
Mm,
know that or speak in those
I know.
terms, and it's because it lends itself, this righteousness, because it's from the right, and it lends
Yeah,
itself to a myriad of misconstrued ideas. That's why I like
it
to
does.
pinpoint it, and but it comes up. It comes up in scripture often, and it comes up in
Right.
talk all the time. Um,
Hmm.
coming back to the message from God and how to hear from God. When
Yeah.
you say that even in the COVID period, again, you had these impulses toward suicide. You became suicidal, and it hadn't happened in a long time.
Uh,
Was there a moment here, instead of Peter and Paul jogging next to you, was there some form of message that came to you to help you through that?
yes. I mean, so these demons, they just keep coming. I'm killing them,
Yeah.
and it's fun. I'm having a good time. They keep coming. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, there's so many of
There's
these things.
so many of them. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm
Never
just
stop.
overwhelmed.
Yeah. That's the problem.
And so what happens is, in the open vision, Jesus comes running up to me. Unlike Peter and Paul, he is wearing a robe, but he's
Yeah.
still jogging.
Hmm.
And so it's the traditional Jesus that I would have seen pictures of and
Imagine. Yeah.
everything else.
Hmm.
But except for I'm looking and I see his eyes, and I capture, just the glance of his eyes, and there was something there that I just didn't expect at all, which was kindness. And I mean, you've seen kindness in eyes before, but there was such a deep level of kindness, which meant that he wasn't like focused on everything, that he wasn't focused on all the faults that I had. He was focused on me being someone that was valuable
Yeah.
to him, and that shocked me. I mean, it was not what I had seen with Christian faiths and things like that. It was like, oh, I don't know you at all. I've never heard that you were personal. I never thought that you would be available.
Hmm.
And even if this is some kind of schizophrenic episode,
Yeah.
I am absolutely in love with
Yes.
this idea. Like, teach me more, tell me more. And then so Jesus speaks to me and he says, Josh, I can take it from here. He used my first name instead of Joshua. He said Josh, which I
Hmm.
don't know why, but that meant so much to me. It
Yeah.
was like he knew me. He
More
was very
personal. Hmm.
casual and those kind of things. And so I was just stunned, like, wait, aren't, I mean, I'm thinking, no, you need to act a certain way and you have to be very much away from me, I mean, like all that kind of stuff. And he would just wasn't doing that. So he says, I can take it from here. And because I don't have a Christian box for this and don't really understand that Jesus needs to take it for me or anything like that,
Hmm.
any of those ideas that exist in Christianity, I'm like, no, I'll do it, like a kind of a false humility kind of
Yeah.
thing. No, it's okay. I can take care of it. And Jesus is like, and then I see him run over a hill that was actually physically there. He
Hmm.
runs over this hill. There's a dragon on the other side. I mean, this is a crazy vision at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, there's an actual dragon I'm looking at. I mean, just something that I didn't feel like I could make up in my imagination.
Right.
There's like multiple heads, and turns out that's also a biblical idea. There's a multi head dragon that I didn't know about in the Bible, and so it has to do with Satan in the Bible. But so I'm jogging, and Jesus goes, takes care of that, and I'm still feeling overwhelmed. And I'm like, and then I remembered in my mind, I just remembered the flood that
Hmm.
Noah had for some reason. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what does that make
40
sense?
nights, 40 days. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, all that children's Bible story. And I'm like, okay, well, if you can flood, can you kill all these things? And I
Get rid
started
of them
talking to
for me.
God. I was like, can you just flood this area
Yeah.
and just kill all of these things spiritually? I mean, you don't have to kill any persons or anything. I would just rather they all go away. And sure enough, I look down, and there's these violent pools of water in the valleys where I'm running, and Balboa Park's up and down all over the place. So it's got these little valleys. These
Hmm.
violent pools are stirring like at the bottom of these, and they start coming up real fast. And it looked so real, and I'm so engaged in this thing that as it comes up towards me, it like shoots up over me, and I have to hold my breath,
Yeah. You're going
and it comes
underwater.
way up into the air. And so I was just like, but I felt it, and then I took another breath, and I realized I could breathe, and there was still like these multiple realities like on top of each other. And
Hmm.
so I was like, I look up into the sky, and that water's still shooting up into the sky,
Hmm.
and there's all these demons floating up. And then I realized later on that I had this moment, which I mean, you may be able to understand. I had this moment when my brother committed suicide, and like kind of in a Hollywood kind of emotional outburst or whatever. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm being taught and grown up by Hollywood movies and stuff like that. I kind of had this moment where I was like, any demons that are out there that were torturing my brother, why don't you come to me? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
right. I'll take care of you.
the,
Yeah.
right, I'll take care. I don't want you going out into the world or anything like that. And that was a sweet idea, but I think they really did honor that, and they came into my life. That was this demonic presence,
Mm-hmm.
and it all began to make sense later on. It was not something that I understood that moment. I still had to go back to work. You know, I mean, there was just
Mm-hmm.
so many things that it was. You know, it's not this like this movie where everything makes sense right away. I just kind of had to put it to the side. I didn't even know
Yeah.
enough to know that I should probably write it down.
Yes,
And,
yes. I
you
was
know,
going to
things
say
like
that.
that, like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
just kind of walked away from it. And but later on, I realized like, oh, this is probably what I needed so that I could break free from some of the
The
noise that was
noise.
really killing me in my life. It was just taking every joy away from me and really putting so much pressure on me. And later on, I did become a Christian very traditionally, kind of in a Hispanic church, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I was
Mm-hmm.
in San Diego,
Right.
California. I'm the one white guy there, and like I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want one. And they just happened to, the day that I got there, which was a long story I won't get into, but the day that I got there, they talked about a relationship with Jesus. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? A relationship with Jesus? This is the first, I just had this experience, and now I'm
Ah,
hearing that this is a reality.
yeah.
And when they said that, I was like, oh, I need that. And I remember dramatically grabbing, here I'm an introvert, I grabbed the speaker by the shoulders, and I'm like, I need one of those, you know, after the service and
Yeah.
stuff. And it was just comical.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm like, and he laughed. He actually laughed because he knew why I was there. I didn't know why I was there. I thought I was going to know if he was a good speaker or not. But it was
Mm-hmm.
just so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But say, all right. So
Mhm.
let's say you have you left that work environment that you had with the suit and all of that, or you do still have that job?
I mostly work with Christians now, but
Okay.
I love organizations. I
Okay, so
love
so what do you
culture.
do? How do you work
Mhm.
with Christians when you say work with Christians? What do you do when you get up? How is your week? What does your day look like? No, I mean, it's important to
Yeah.
know. Hmm.
I'm an administrator at a church. Now, this is a long story, but
Yeah, go
basically,
ahead.
my wife and I, we felt called to come to Selma, Alabama,
Selma,
which is,
Alabama. Hmm.
yeah, the word called, just like our relationship with the Lord. He made things, He gave us peace. And when it came to the idea where we didn't have peace with anything else,
How did you meet your
so we went
wife?
after peace. I met her. I was leading worship at a church, and you know, kind of one of those stories. But
Hmm.
yes, she came in, and she was everything I needed in life. You know, one of
Okay.
those. She's amazing, and but yeah. So we, you know, we've been married for 12 years now. So
Hmm.
just, but so we've learned this process, and for us, you know, we follow our peace when we pray and those kind of things. We ask God, hey, what do you want us to do? And during COVID, it was really confusing. Like
Oh,
a lot of things were shutting down,
God, it was so
and
difficult, so difficult. It still is. It still is difficult,
yeah,
but it's
it
a
is, it
different
is, and
kind of difficult now. Mm.
mhm. And so we moved to Selma to help a judge who his heart is for the city. If you know anything about Selma, there's a lot of civil rights and stuff,
Yes,
history there.
yes.
It's a beautiful history. I mean, Martin Luther King. There's just been so many beautiful things that have happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Voting rights is the big
Mm-hmm.
historical thing. But this judge had come in to his judgeship there in Selma, Alabama, to kind of change the culture and help, like with segregation and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. And that was his heart. And we were like, oh, I'd love to follow someone like that. God, is this what you want us to do? And then that peace came, and so that's what moved us there.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt crazy, but I mean, it's been really good to us. Like it's really been an interesting thing.
And you took took on a church. You
Mm-hmm.
administer a church. there?
That's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So I came and I was just helping them with a little organizational structure and with websites, and also something that I love to do, which is like inner healing, which I help
Yeah.
people if they're experiencing
And
voices or they've got
when you,
anxiety and those kind of
this
things.
is important if you don't mind spending a few minutes talking about this.
Oh yeah.
How do you typically explain what a person says to you when they come to you? What is their issue?
Right. Well, it's a spiritual issue. So
Hmm. Give us an
where people
example,
like,
any kind.
yeah. People might be dealing. Well, so I do different types, so that
Hmm.
like we focus on finances or something like
Sure.
that. So maybe the voice of finances. Let's say voice because it
Okay.
makes a lot of sense.
Sure,
Honestly, it's
sure,
accurate.
sure.
The voice of money is so loud in their life that they
Yeah,
just can't. They can't hear anything else, and they're panicky and they're kind of frustrated that they can't do enough to get through.
yeah,
Then it's important for me, especially if they're a Christian, to help them hear from God, because
yeah,
God's voice should be louder than money.
yeah,
And He's going to have more resources. He's going to be more friendly than a lot
yeah.
of them think, and all that kind of stuff. And He's actually
Sure.
going to have an opinion about what they do with their money, which is even surprising to a lot of Christians.
Yeah,
And when they experience it, there's no going back, which is why I love it so much. It's like, oh, now that you've had this experience, you have a solid foundation. Like, it's not your pastor's faith, it's not your parents' faith, it's your faith.
hmm,
And so to me, that's really important. That is an amazingly important part of the Christian faith that is often overlooked. And so that's what our organization even exists to do. We want to do that not just for individuals, but even for organizations.
hmm,
Organizations can have a culture of peace. They can have a culture of kindness. They can
hmm.
have a culture of goodwill, and they can do good things, and they can do it without necessarily just being nothing. They don't have to like exclude themselves from the world to be good. But they need to be able to know that they have this connection to God, and there is a spiritual reality, and it's not all about being separated from everyone and exclusive or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
it's about engaging with this generous, actually happy God, this new covenant God
Hmm.
who's not dissatisfied with everyone. That's not a
Hmm.
fault
Hmm.
finder. He's actually looking for
Joshua,
them.
has
Mhm.
has anyone ever come to you and tell you, I have seen what I believe is God or Jesus or any of, Peter, Paul, or whatever? Has anyone done that in your
Yes, I
experience?
mean, so like in meditation, this is
Yes.
Christian meditation is a thing. It's not odd or
Or what
anything.
is
I mean,
it
it's been
different?
around
How different is it with respect to meditation in the broad
Eastern medicine.
sense? Hmm.
So there are some differences. Like, we don't focus on poses,
Right.
or not that those are bad. It's not a statement against anything that
Right,
I'm
right,
saying
right.
this,
Sure. It's a distinction.
but
Hmm.
we a distinction. Yeah, we don't focus on poses, and it's more about filling yourself up with God than emptying yourself out. And there's reasons for that. There's like scriptural reasons and those kind of things. Like for the Christian connection to God is everything. So it's there's no division. There's no but the certain things do create those divisions, which I address, like
Hmm. So
unforgiveness
typically,
and those
would
kind of things.
these sessions
Mhm.
occur in a group meeting?
They can, and
Yeah.
especially if it's organizationally focused,
Hmm.
then it's best that everybody, all the leaders of the organization, or at least the senior leaders, will get into a room
Be
and
there.
and
Hmm.
um, and think about what their business or what they're
Hmm.
doing. They're usually a Christian business of some sort. Will have to what is its purpose? So
Yeah.
purpose is everything in the
Right.
Bible.
Hmm.
There's scriptures on that. God is speaking to us. He's speaking to us about our purpose. And
Oh,
so if we're
all right. Wait,
listening
wait,
for
wait.
that kind of
Now,
stuff.
this is,
Mhm.
I'll stop at you because I work with a lot of people, and I always say this because it's true. Before COVID, people used to come to me and ask about love. Where can I find love?
Yeah.
why are we breaking up? Why, and after
Mhm.
COVID, the main question was, what is my purpose? What is it? It
Wow.
was complete disorientation. And this was very big. It's challenging. It's a big challenge.
It
So when
is.
you get this group of, what could we call them? Business oriented people in a room and you talk of purpose, what is the
Mhm.
conversation like? What do they actually say?
Right. Well, if there is a CEO, it's kind of convenient because
Yeah.
I can lead them in a meditation that can help them speak to the Lord. Like it sounds super strange, or
No.
maybe it doesn't, but but it is very important that they get confirmed on the things that they are doing well and are doing right. And if they need to make adjustments, they do. If someone's like the concept of inner healing has to do with basically that we're in this world that's fallen.
Yeah.
Our authority was given over to in the Bible. Oh, it looks like I'm frozen.
Okay, if we've unfrozen
Let's see.
Joshua.
I'm
There
sorry.
you
It looks
go.
like I'm
Go ahead.
frozen for some reason.
Go ahead. Oh, you're on. You're fine. It's a little slow, but I
Are
can
you
hear
still
you.
there?
Yeah, yeah. I can hear you. Hang on.
Okay.
Zoom. There you go. We've unfrozen Joshua. Are you with us? Yes. Okay.
I
So
am. Yes.
we're with the CEO and we're
Mhm.
asking what works, what doesn't work, what do they do? They actually talk about their work. Is this this
Mhm.
is the interesting part about it because we're putting the notion
Mhm.
of spirituality in
Yes.
everyday. Now tell us. This is what I try to express, but
Yeah.
apparently it's very difficult. Go ahead.
I do agree. It is difficult to bridge this gap of understanding that the spiritual is very connected to the practical day to day realities that we face, especially our work. It's not an accident that that we're in the position that we're in. It's not an accident that we have whatever we've got going on. But we need to know that, and there is a way. And to me, it's convenient that as a son you can hear, or as a daughter you can hear from a father.
Hmm.
That position, that understanding is a mindset that you're sitting in. And if you believe it, then you begin to play around with the idea. So a lot of times people, if it's their first time hearing from God, then they'll be like, well, I think this is what I heard. And
Right.
then I'm there to help them say, well, okay, well, if you don't understand it, then let's ask some more questions and see if there's any more information that comes.
Hmm. So let's
And
say
mhm,
they're talking about their work. Let's transpose this meeting,
right.
get rid of those people, put in other people who work in a
Mhm,
restaurant. The cook, the manager, the cashier, the waiters, waitresses,
mhm,
and they're all there. The company owner decided that we need some kind of a powwow. And there was word of mouth, and they heard about you. So they come to you for help because some of the people are arguing with each other. A lot of people are not producing. A lot of people have lost interest in their work. So if we can understand in a nutshell what occurs when
mhm.
something like them come to you.
Yeah. Well, everybody is valuable, from my experience. Like, if I'm valuable, then you're valuable, and so is everyone else. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't feel like God made a distinction, like, hey, you're my son and you're the only one I've been looking for.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that at all. It was like, hey, I see good in you. And he convicted me of like this righteousness, and he started to allow me to experience it.
Hmm.
So for example, in a real practical sense, in this restaurant,
Right.
I would take them to have them do strengths based, testing assessments or something like that, because I
What
want
does
to
that mean?
know.
What does that mean? I
Oh
don't
yeah.
understand.
So there's a test called Strengths Finder. It's an assessment actually,
Okay.
and you go through and you answer questions. It's very secularly accepted,
Hmm.
and it kind of had a real height a few years back, but I
Hmm.
still use it because it's beautiful. So it's kind of like the introvert extrovert
So people
idea.
assessing their own skills and
Exactly.
okay, personalities.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I want to know if they can spend enough time thinking about what's right with them, then I can start to talk to them about how that can play into their teamwork.
Okay.
And so that is a very secular approach, which I
Hmm.
don't always take because I like to talk about the spiritual
Right.
aspects, you know.
Hmm.
But just from a secular approach, you know, where then I'm going to talk to them about strength building, and
Hmm.
then I'm going to talk to them about a culture of generosity, and
Okay.
how they can give their strength to each other, and in doing that, they're creating a good economy that will
Hmm.
actually bring
Okay, so
forth
this
like
is
wealth.
magical what you're doing. I mean, it really
Hmm.
is blending the spiritual with the economic, and
Yeah.
family sense and community sense. It's quite interesting. Joshua, I know
Yeah.
we've only touched the surface. I mean, um, we could definitely go on, and I hope in the future you will come back. I'll come knocking on your door again, and you're going to have to
Awesome.
say
I
yes
hope so.
in the
Yes.
new year. The new year, we'll continue this, and we'll see if we can start understanding this kind of culture of kindness and gratitude and
Yes.
strengths that we
Hmm.
could offer other people, even in just
Yeah.
our living environment and our working environment. Boy, that was interesting, Joshua. Thank you so,
Oh,
so
I'm so
much.
glad.
I appreciated it.
Yes, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. It's
Yeah,
really an
yeah. Well,
honor.
I'm just going to say goodbye, but in Italian we say arrivederci. Mean I will see you again, okay? Bye
Awesome.
bye.
Awesome. Thank you.